Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the channel that talks all things Wentworth. I hope you're all doing really well out there and that you're all in good health today. Now, in today's video, I am going to be taking a look at some of my favourite Franky Doyle moments. But before we get started, if this is your first time here, then don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and share the love. Okay then guys, get yourselves comfy and let's take a look at my top 10 favourite Franky Doyle moments. Number 10, Franky's backstory episode. Starting this list off with an early moment now from the show. In season 1, we learnt the backstory of each character, and in episode 3 it was Franky's turn, and boy, it was a great episode. We learnt that Franky had appeared on a reality TV cooking show where the host, Mike Panisi, was mocking Franky's dish. Now this caused Franky to lash out and throw a pan of boiling hot water all over Mike Panisi just after she punches him to the ground. We learnt that Franky had an awful upbringing after her dad walked out on her, and Franky was abused by her own mother, who even used to put cigarettes out on her body. What a bitch. But my favourite part of this episode is when Franky's dad comes in to visit her behind a glass screen, and Franky emotionally tells her dad what she thinks of him. Now, I have to say, Nicole's acting in this scene is off the scale, and this was the very moment where I really started to like Franky. Number 9, bitch slapped. A great moment now in my next spot. So, in season 3, Franky was working towards her parole, and she was having her psych sessions with Bridget Westfall, where the pair of them were growing closer and closer. Halfway through season 3, Kim Chang returns back to Wentworth after being released, and Kim tells Franky that she got herself arrested on purpose so she can be back with her lover, and pretty much declares her love. However, Franky had eyes for someone else, and that someone else was Bridget, and it wasn't long before Kim realised. So Kim started the rumour machine in the prison that Franky and Bridget were sleeping together, which raised quite a few eyebrows. So Bridget decided that she couldn't do the psych sessions with Franky anymore, and this pissed off Franky. So the great scene that I'm talking about here is when Franky sees Kim in the corridor and drags her out of sight from the cameras. Kim turns around and says, "What you gonna do, bitch slap me?" Franky then raises the back of her hand and slaps Kim in the face and says, "Consider yourself bitch slapped." I absolutely loved this scene, and it often plays in my head rent-free every now and again. Number 8, Franky escapes in a box. In my next spot, we are taking a look at the season 5 final. So, all the way through season 5, we had Franky's escape storyline playing out. And by the final episode, the escape happened. Franky was working in Boomer's workshop and was planning on escaping in one of the boxes. Ali Novak was supposed to go with Franky, but instead, she made a deal to get rid of Ferguson, but that's a video for another day. Franky was unaware of all of this, and Franky just ended up climbing into her box, stapled herself in. Then the box that she was in was picked up and taken to some sort of warehouse. Franky then unpicked the staples and climbed out of her box. It was at this stage that Franky realised that Ali didn't make it out of the prison, and she found a letter in her pocket from Ali explaining everything. Now these last few moments always gives me goosebumps because we hear Ali's letter being read out in the background with some haunting music being played, while Franky goes to Bridget's workplace to let her know that she still loves her and she will be back. We then cut to a scene where we see Franky running in the dead of night with the city lights behind her, and I just always loved this moment. I think it was beautifully put together, and I can even remember feeling a little bit emotional when I first saw this scene. Number 7, Frankie is shot. Okay, so this next spot isn't particularly a great moment for Frankie, however it is a brilliantly dramatic moment that happens to her character, and I just had to put it in the list. So, after Frankie had escaped from Wentworth, she wanted to try and prove her innocence. So she ended up going to visit Iman Farah's psychologist Zoe Taylor, but Zoe ended up pressing a panic button under her desk, which resulted in the police arriving on the scene, who ended up chasing Frankie through some streets until Frankie ended up climbing on top of a fence as the cops corner her. The cops warn Frankie not to move, otherwise they will shoot her, but Frankie does move and she tries to make a jump for it over the fence, and one of the coppers actually shoots Frankie, causing her to pretty much fly off the fence down an embankment just by a railway line. Now the ending of this episode was brilliant, it was so dramatic, and I honestly thought that Frankie was going to die in the next episode, because we all knew at this stage that Nicole had left the show in season 6, and I think quite a few of us thought that the writers were going to literally tear our hearts out with Frankie. Luckily though, Frankie did survive to fight another day. Number 6, Hot Girl, Hot Car. In Wentworth, there are many quotes and moments that stick with us, and Hot Girl, Hot Car is definitely one of them. In season 3, Frankie tells Bridget during one of their sessions that her dream is to get paroled and to be picked up by a hot girl in a hot car. So, by the end of season 3, after the Great Fire of Wentworth, that's exactly what happens when Frankie leaves the prison for the first time. After Frankie says her goodbyes to the women, Frankie walks down that long road from the prison that leads to the gates, and Frankie then hears someone beeping from a car, and Frankie instantly has this big massive smile on her face. Bridget arrives in a very hot car, looking very hot herself, and Bridget and Frankie end up kissing up against this hot car, and it was just literally the perfect ending for Frankie. I mean, I know there were more things that happened later on down the line in later seasons, but I just love this original ending that the writers did for Frankie's character. Number 5, I fucking killed Meg Jackson. This moment in my next spot actually blew me away when I first saw it. So Bridget and Frankie, they're having a very heavy session in one of the psych meetings, and Bridget ends up pushing some of Frankie's buttons when she starts talking about Frankie's childhood and about Frankie's mum. So Frankie starts to get very angry and she even hits the door. Bridget then keeps going and starts talking about Frankie's anger. Frankie warns Bridget that she really does need to shut the fuck up, and Bridget then tells Frankie that she's a good person, resulting in Frankie telling Bridget that she isn't a good person because she killed Meg Jackson, telling Bridget that Meg shat on her just like her mum, and Bridget warns Frankie that she needs to stop talking, otherwise she's gonna have to report it. Frankie then breaks down, and it's just such a powerful scene, and I believe that it was at this moment where Frankie was starting to turn a corner, even if she did get away with murder. Number 4, the bitch bleeds just like the rest of us. Another brilliant quote from Frankie. So, during season 5, Joan Ferguson was terrorising the women and running the prison on fear when she became top dog. By season 5 episode 11, the women had enough of Joan freaking Ferguson, and Kaz and Frankie teamed up with the rest of the women to take Joan down. This leads us on to the famous kangaroo court scene, where the women tie Joan to the basketball bar, and they end up taking Linda Miles hostage. Frankie then makes this amazing speech to the women, telling them all that Joan killed Iman Farah, tortured Jodie Spiteri, killed Simone Slater, murdered B. Smith, hot-shotted Ali, cut out Juicy Lucy's tongue, and set fire to Wentworth that nearly killed all of them. Frankie then goes up to Joan and delivers one of my favourite Frankie lines, "The bitch bleeds just like the rest of us," and goes on to tell the women that she's just one woman, look at her. I just absolutely loved every single moment of this powerful scene. We all wanted Joan to get some sort of just desserts after what happened with B. Smith, so when this moment happened, I was literally glued to every single word that was coming out of Franky's mouth. A brilliant moment in the show. Number 3, Franky beats up Juice. Now this is the moment where Franky literally turns into a ninja, and it's brilliant. So in season 3, Liz's daughter Sophie came into Wentworth as an inmate after causing death by drink driving. Liz ends up taking Sophie to the shower block, and then Juice and her crew arrive, and you always knew that whenever Juice and her crew come into the showers, something bad was gonna happen, and it does, because Juice ends up pinning Sophie up against the wall with the intention of sexually assaulting her, while Liz is being held back by Juice's crew and literally being punched in the stomach. But in walks Franky with her mop, and she literally runs at the crew and beats the crap out of them with the mop. Franky then does the same to Juice and pins her up against the wall. And when Franky lets Juice go, she whacks Juice in the shoulder with the mop, which causes the mop to break. And I remember thinking, ooh, that's gonna hurt. It's such a great moment, and it was great to see Franky in a fight scene for the greater good for a change. Number 2, Franky visits B. Franky and B had been through a lot together. At times they were arch enemies and even had a brutal fight in the laundry. Once B was finally top dog, B and Franky both ended up teaming up against Joan, and they pretty much became good friends by the end of season 3 and had massive respect for each other. In season 4, Joan Ferguson tried to kill B, causing B to go into deeper depression. Bridget knew exactly what B needed, a visit from an old friend, and this is such a lush scene. When B walks into the visitor's room and sees Franky at the vending machine, I just had the most biggest smile ever. They end up smiling at each other from the distance, and then Franky gives B a massive hug, and you can clearly see that this is definitely what B needed to give her a boost. I loved their conversation as well after the hugging, because this is when Franky learned that B had fallen for another woman, and Franky, she was just so excited and so happy for B. It's just a genuinely lovely and beautiful scene between two amazing characters. Number 1, Franky leaves for the final time. Okay, so this was always going to be at my number 1 spot, and the reason for this is because there are certain moments in Wentworth where it doesn't matter how many times I've seen the season or the episode, I will always break down and cry, and this is one of those moments. So when Franky finally proves that she had nothing to do with Mike Panisi's death, she is finally set free, but not before going back to Wentworth to say her goodbyes. So she goes back and she says goodbye to Liz, Ali and Boomer, and they play this really sad but also quite uplifting music while the scene is playing out, and you definitely feel that this is definitely Franky's final ever goodbye just by the way it's filmed. We then cut to Franky and Bridget going to see Franky's dad and Franky's little sister, and Franky and her little sister, they run towards each other in a field and they hug each other while the symbolic kite flies into the sky, and it's just beyond perfect. It's one of those very, very rare moments in Wentworth where a character actually gets a happy ending. And that was my top 10 favourite Franky Doyle moments, and I tell you what guys, I struggled to keep this list to a top 10 because there were so many brilliant Franky Doyle moments, but what did you guys think of my list? Were there moments on my list that you agree with, and are there moments that you think that I might have missed on the list? Let me know. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments box below. Okay then guys, well thank you all for watching today's video. I absolutely love every single one of you for being so loyal to this channel. Make sure you all have a great weekend whatever you're getting up to, and I will see you all again very soon.